Good afternoon and welcome to the Hawks Nest. This week we're going to be talking about football's win on homecoming over Austin Peay. And then we're going to transition into soccer and how they're trying to keep their playoff hopes alive in the Ohio Valley Conference. And we're going to go ahead and finish off with volleyball and how they've been continuing their dominance so far this season. Hello, welcome back. I'm Zach Tate. Alongside me is Tom Olson. How you doing today, Tom?
Pretty stupendous.
That's awesome. Let's just go ahead and get right on to it. Start off with football here. You know, they came into this game coming off of a dominating win against Tennessee Tech, scoring 70 points. Coming into this game against Austin Peay, really not sure how it's going to go. What do you think, Tom?
Well, I think a big win we probably just thought was going to come. We thought it was going to be a much larger win, but I mean, game started off pretty boring in the first half. Neither team really came alive, but we destroyed them in the second half on our way to a 31-27 victory for the good guys.
Yeah, kind of looking back at that first half, didn't look like good news. You know, Daniel Santa Catarina, he had 89 yards and an interception. Really couldn't get that offense flowing at all. Marquez Terry didn't have very many yards on the ground in that first half either. And then, you know, kicker Nicholas Letang missed 2 field goals. Like 30, 40 yarders, like nothing crazy. Missed 2 field goals. Sometimes it happens. What are you going to do? 13-3 deficit at halftime, but that's when Santa Catarina got the offense flowing, I'll tell you. He had over 250 yards in that second half and threw for 3 touchdowns as well, really kickstarting that Southeast offense. It turned into a good game.
Oh, yes.
Really good game.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think people might have been sleeping on the Red Hawks at the halftime, but that doozy turned into a landslide of offense, mostly through the air. And, a good win overall, put them at 4-2. We scored with 15 seconds left, Marquez Terry, you said. And, pretty well-earned victory.
Yeah, Marquez, although he's had a couple dominating games so far this season, last month, not much. You know, he got injured against Eastern Kentucky. Then he had a bye week. And then he only played a couple snaps 2 weeks ago. And then coming into this matchup, he had 20 carries, but he only had 40 yards on the ground. But Quez showed up when it mattered. Big-time Quez. Scored that 2-yard rush right at the end of the game. Gave us a final lead change. Good show. Good show by the senior running back. Kind of looking at that offensive arsenal that Santa Catarina had. Just looking at his favorite target, Jarek Orr, ended up having 6 receptions, over under 60 yards. Like, he had a game, I'll tell you.
Big-time players make big-time plays.
They sure do, Tommy. And, you know, a couple other players. He ended up not even snagging a touchdown. Had Crump score touchdown, Wilkerson score touchdown, Smith, but hey, sometimes you don't need the fantasy points. You just need to make plays happen. He had a couple there in the fourth quarter as well. So he really showed out in that matchup. Kind of looking forward to next week. Yeah.
Yep.
So we got number 4 Jacksonville State coming into town.
They're pretty good at football.
They have been known to be good at football, Tom. Now, they are leading the Ohio Valley Conference. Not only are they leading the Ohio Valley Conference, they've been leading the Ohio Valley Conference for over 3 years. They haven't lost a conference game in 36 games.
To put that in perspective, SEMO only won 3 games last year.
Yeah. They're good at football. Let's just say that. SEMO hasn't beat them since 2007, so they've been pretty good for quite some time, Tom. But with this offensive attack that Southeast has been able to put together these last couple weeks, anything could happen. Anything could happen.
I think the Red Hawk faithful better show up on Saturday, and if they do, they could be in for one hell of a match.
I really think so, Tommy. It could really go either way with the power that Jacksonville State has, but this SEMO offense has been unpredictable. There's been weeks where we've scored, 2 touchdowns. There's been weeks where we scored 8, Anything could happen.
Anything can happen.
Anything could happen. Zach Hall, the defensive player for the Red Hawks, inside linebacker, had 14 tackles last week. He's 3rd in the nation in tackles per game, sitting at just under 13. He's been pretty dominant. He's just under 200 tackles. He's sitting at 192 for his career. I think he's going to get in this next matchup against Jacksonville State.
Pretty good at tackling people.
Pretty good. Let's kind of move on from there. Let's move into soccer a little bit. So, mixed success over the weekend. Nothing too bad, really. You know, against Eastern Illinois, they did end up picking up the win. Esme Gonzalez had her 6th goal of the season, and that was assisted on by Jordan Nelson in overtime. Lots of games in overtime in recent years. Bailey Redden, the freshman goalkeeper, she ended up having her 3rd shutout of the season. Not doing too bad for a freshman.
Not too bad at all. She won the OVC Goalie of the Week this week, actually.
She sure did. I believe she had 4 saves in that matchup, and then against Edwardsville, just a couple days later, she ended up having, I think, 11 saves on the weekend. She's been the first SEMO player to get OVC weekly honors this season. She's really shown out, especially for a freshman, when you're sharing the same field as Esme Gonzalez, who's been dynamic for the past couple of years.
Those young guns have came alive for the Red Hawks this season.
They sure have. And in that SIUE game, it was a 1-1 tie, you know. Better than a loss. Always better than a loss, but, you know, you really don't want to.
Nobody likes to tie, though.
Nobody likes to tie.
Nobody likes to
You know,
tie.
baseball doesn't like to tie. I'll let you know
Baseball
that
doesn't like
much.
to tie. Football doesn't like to tie.
Sometimes.
People
Not
don't like to
always.
tie.
People don't like to
People
tie.
don't want to tie.
You know, that matchup against SIUE, that also went into overtime. That was the 3rd straight match that went to overtime. Lots of close games for the Red Hawks
Fans are getting
here.
their money's worth when the Red Hawks come to town.
for sure. Always get that extra period. But it was kind of a sleeper in the first half. Nobody scored on either side, but then early on into the second half, Edwardsville ended up getting a score in there, and then McCourt got a score in there as well, assisted on by Job. But moving on from that, we're going to be looking forward to upcoming on Sunday. SEMO host for the first time in about 3 weeks. They host a soccer game. They're playing Austin Peay, and that's going to be a big deal, Tom.
I mean, we're coming home. Long journey is over, and I mean, but the whole reason these are going to be big games is because they're fighting for a playoff berth, and they need to win out in a lot of ways to secure a spot in the OVC tournament.
Yeah, if they win out the rest of their season, they'll actually host a conference game. That's a big deal in and of itself, but you got to win one game to just get in. So really kind of walking that thin line of what's going to happen. Are we going to head home on vacation early, or are we going to, punch through and get in that postseason, fight hard to the ground?
Anything can happen.
Anything can happen, especially in soccer, Tom.
Especially in soccer.
Anything can
where people
happen.
don't like to tie.
Moving on, let's kind of go into volleyball a little bit. Also a little bit of mixed success, but overall they've been doing pretty good recently.
Oh, yeah. On 10-12, volleyball went down to Eastern Kentucky, and that was the last day of record of Eastern Kentucky in history, as we swept them 3-0 and absolutely destroyed them and pillaged their entire village with a 25-19, 25-19, 25-21 destruction of EKU.
Yeah, Eastern Kentucky no longer on the map. Take it off, throw it away, call the Atlas.
It's a ghost town.
It's a ghost town.
People no longer live there.
Yeah, Annie Wareheim, utter dominance in that matchup. She ended up with 18 kills, which, I mean, in a 5-set match, that's impressive, let alone a 3-set sweep.
Those aren't
Sheer
stories.
domination.
Yep.
Claire Oakes in that matchup had 35 assists and 11 digs. Continued dominance from the freshman setter. And then Haley Bilbrook, the senior, 15 digs of her own is not too bad.
Pretty great game all around by all the Red Hawks.
Yeah, definitely a good show out against Eastern Kentucky on that one. And then moving on, just the next day on Saturday, played at Morehead State. Not as much success.
Yeah, but I think that kind of goes hand in hand with destroying Eastern Kentucky the day before. We have to be invited back to some places in this conference, because if we destroyed Morehead State again, it would have been bad.
Just boot us out of the conference.
That was a pretty humble of the Red Hawks to decide not to destroy Morehead State.
Yeah, the Red Hawks did come out hot in that first set there. Ended up winning 25-21, but the rest of the matchups there, the rest of the sets, some were close, some were not. Like I said, first set 25-21 dub by the Red Hawks, and then Morehead State won out the rest 18-25, 21-25, and 13-25. Especially that last one was not a good time. So sometimes dice doesn't really roll your way, and that's what it kind of looks like it happened for the Redhawks on Saturday. Laney Malloy and Wareheim, they both ended up having 10 kills on the night. Haley Burbrook added 9. So if you look at just the stats, it was really a good offensive spread for volleyball.
It was definitely an interesting week to say the least. I'm looking ahead to Belmont. Belmont is doing poorly this season with a 2-18 overall record. That would be not very tremendous. But you know what they say, what is dead may never die, so the Redhawks really can't look past them.
Yeah, exactly, and especially because the Bruins just last week, had a big win over Austin P. You're really looking at it like maybe they're having a couple late season heroics here as they're trying to squeak into the conference tournament. You never know. But with a 2-4 OVC record, that's not exactly looking likely here for Belmont. But just like soccer, just like any other sport, anything could happen, Tom.
Anything can happen.
Anything could happen.
Well, that's all for this week. I've been Tom Olson.
I'm Zach Tate.
And this has been the Hawks Nest.